dare to dream about a better marriage. And our focus scripture is Genesis 13. And I like that scripture. I like where God called out Abraham and he asked him, how far can you see? And so I'll be asking any woman listening to me today, how far can you see about your marriage? What can you see? Okay, so the thing is, if we don't see it, we won't have it. If we don't see it, we won't have it. You know, there's a reason why in Proverbs 4:23 it says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. You know, that's the place where you conceive dreams. That's where you birth these things. So if you don't see it, if I don't have a good picture of the kind of marriage I won't have it. We become what we see on a regular basis. So if I continue to, if I sit down and I start conceiving an image of the kind of marriage I want, if it's not a good image, it doesn't matter how much I desire or I expect to see something different about my marriage, it won't happen. You know, like they say, the enemy of great is good. So even if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, my marriage is good, there are depths. There are depths to these things. And not until you begin to ask questions, not until you begin to probe, what more can we have in this marriage? What new experience can we have in this marriage? You won't see it. So you need to dare to see something big about your marriage. And in saying that, you know, it's been an interesting 2020. A lot has happened with COVID impacting a lot of marriages. I mean, as a typical mom, now for some mothers, some people have lost their jobs. At the time COVID was on, some had to homeschool. Even those who were working had to double up homeschooling and getting on as though we didn't have enough responsibilities, because that came on with its own additional roles, like having to take on administrative work, which, prior to the time, some of us may not have been exposed to. And then with these things came the heat on marriage. Stress piled, and stress definitely affects marriage. Okay, the National Domestic Violence Helpline said it got more calls, more texts, more contact from as many as up to 62,000 more persons, you know, at the time between mid-March to mid-May. So as a mom, I mean, this is your reality. You're there with more demands. There's a demand from your family. There's a demand from work. And sometimes we forget to take holidays. I was listening to the Dave Ramsey show, and he was talking about sometimes, you know, mothers will go through this guilt trip, and he kind of feels very sorry for us sometimes, because it's like, if you don't work, then you're called an irresponsible mom. If you work, you're called an irresponsible mom. So it's like, oh, I can't win either way, you know. And all of this come with its demands. Whether you're a full-time housewife, or whether you're a part-time housewife, or whether you're working, there are demands on you. And the tendency is that sometimes we forget that we need to rest. We need to take breaks. We need to have me times. You know, I was speaking to someone and she was asking me, how do you cope when you find yourself snapping? Because sometimes with stress, that's another impact of stress. You find yourself snapping in the house. You probably raising your voice at your children. You become more intolerant to your husband. That's the impact of stress. Yes, it's not like you've done something wrong, but these things happen. And that's why it's important that as mothers, we find time, we make time, we get intentional about these things to rest, pull back, have some me time. And one thing I find personally for me, when I get very snappy, I just need to spend some time with God, and it's really rejuvenating. It's reviving. So it might be something someone might need to consider today. So with all of this, I mean, and I understand, I've looked at the number of people who are on, and it does appear I'm talking to migrant mothers. So, and as a migrant mother, there's that added advantage, task as well for you, because it's like you come into the place, there's a shock of having to settle in a new country, and then that in itself comes with more demands. Okay, and there are things to worry about. There's the financial impact of it. I mean, in the immigration law at the moment is going through a lot of changes, and a lot of them are not favorable to families. On 27th October, there was announced that, hey, immigration health surcharge would increase from £400 to £624. A lot of families are not ready for that. I mean, that's you saying that for one person, one individual in a family, they would be paying about £580 for an application. That's an additional cost. So that in itself is more stress on you, you see. So if time is not taken, that can begin to affect the fabrics of your marriage. And that's why I'm talking about what I'm talking about today. We need to be intentional about it. So what do we do then? What do we do? Now, the first thing is you need to know where you are. Where is your marriage? How do you feel about your marriage? How do you feel about things, the ongoings in your marriage? Be honest with yourself. How do you feel? So when you know it, you can properly make an assessment of the situation. So you need to make that evaluation. Where are you? And then you begin to ask yourself, where do we go? Now, I cannot go to a place if I do not know where I'm going. You see why I said you need to see a better marriage. You need to see it to become it. You need to see it to have it. You don't wish it. You need to see it. You need to conceive it. And when we take couples through our intimacy builder program, we encourage them to pick an ideal day in their marriage. And when we say ideal day, that's the picture of the ideal marriage you see, the picture you've conceived of it. Now, in making that practical, and this is me deciding, okay, today I wake up at 5 a.m., I roll over, I see my husband lying next to me, and I'm truly, truly grateful to God for giving me a wonderful man like this. I feel privileged to be his wife. And then we give ourselves a hug, he gives me a kiss, and we say our prayers. And right after that, we go down to pray with our lovely children. Now, that may not be your reality. It may not be your reality. You carry on. Yes, at lunchtime, I'm looking forward to hearing his voice again. Oh, I've missed him. You see. Now, you realize that when you want to do something great, a lot of things will be fighting it. Like for any task you do, it's just like when the word says that after the seed has been sown, the enemy cometh immediately to steal it. So this is you now. I've conceived this thing, and I want to have a better marriage. Everything in your head will begin to tell you contrary. No, it's not possible. Oh, he hit you the other day. Oh, have you forgotten that fight? And then before in no time you lose momentum on that. So, but this is you staying on it. And then we encourage people to document it. And why is that? The mind picks what is urgent, not just what's important, what is urgent. So you documenting it means you've crystallized the thought, it's clear in your mind, you've written it down, your mind can pick it. It's like when you go to buy a car. The moment you decide on the car you want to buy, you start seeing it on the road. Oh, you begin to look, oh, that's the red one, that's the black one. What happened? Those cars have always been on the road, but because you have processed, you've thought about it, everything, your focus is on it. It becomes easy to identify. So when you write it down, it's easy for you to pick it. And then what do you do next? Now, this is where you start asking yourself a question. Who do I need to be to have this kind of marriage? This marriage I've just seen, this marriage I've conceived. Who do I need to be to have it? You know, the mistake sometimes we make is that we tend to sit down and say, oh, I'm going to wait on, if my husband changes, then I'll change. Things will get better when he changes. You know, and there's something in psychology they call revolving cycle. So when you have a habit, you do something, your husband reacts to what you've done, and then you react to his reaction. It becomes a cycle, it carries on. But when you get to the point where you take responsibility for your action, okay, this is my bad. I am responsible for this, and I'm going to make the changes I want to see happen. When you change, what will happen? Your husband's reaction will change immediately. That's what happens. To have a good marriage, you need to be a good you. It won't just happen like that. So you need to be the change you want to see. Start from yourself. Sometimes when people complain about their spouses, we would often say it's not in your place to change anyone. You can't do that. That's the place of the Holy Spirit. So there's something that happens, like when you read Stormy O'Martian's book, Lord, Change Me. There's something that happens when you open yourself to change. You're more disposed, your heart is in a place for change. You're open, your heart is there to receive. Whilst God is changing you, you begin to see the change in your marriage. It's that simple. It's not a simple process, but it's something you must do to have the marriage you desire. And after that, you then need to have your why. You must have a compelling why. Why do I want this kind of marriage? For one woman listening to me, it might just be that you want to change the narrative. You want your children to see a good example. All they've seen prior to this time is you and your husband having many arguments. No, at this point, I want them to have a good picture of marriage. Otherwise, they will detest marriage for life. That might be your compelling why. For another person, it may be the fact that in your family, no marriage has crossed 20 years, and you want that for yourself. But you must have a compelling why. Your compelling why keeps you. It's that thing that keeps you going, even when the odds are down. You're telling yourself, I have to do this. Because I stumbled on a quote in the course of the week, and he said, you don't drown because you fall into water. You drown because you stay submerged. So yes, you might have a bad marriage, but not until you tell yourself that, yes, it's just an incident, but I can change it. I can change my reality in this. I can change my experience. And yes, even if you're having a good one, you decide to look for more and you don't stay submerged. So you must have a compelling why. And this one is a big one. This is a big one. You build the right community. Your association is more powerful than your personal will. Your association is more powerful than your personal will. Sometimes when they talk about peer pressure, we think it's only children who are prone to peer pressure, but even as adults are prone to that. And that's why you must be discerning in picking your association. You pick wisely. And when I say discerning, there are people you have around you that keep you balanced. The people you have around you that keep you on the ground. You can't be desiring something and everything around you works against it. No, you don't isolate yourself as well. Because sometimes we've seen this where a woman who loves God, a young lady who loves God, gets married. Of course, she expects the best in marriage. And then after marriage, things don't go the way she wanted. And she suddenly, because she doesn't want people to know about the problem, or she just feels like she's failed in marriage, she withdraws. And then you're there. And sometimes we don't realize that that's how depression creeps on you. It just happens. You don't isolate yourself. When the lion wants to prey on an animal, it isolates it from the herd. So when you're isolated, you're easy to be attacked. You don't stay isolated. No, you're going through that pain. But there are women, you surround yourself, get yourself planted in the midst of praying mothers. Get yourself, oh, my children are not doing well. Oh, and it's causing a lot of problem between myself and my husband. No, don't just carry on crying. Get yourself in the midst of the right people who can speak to you, people who pray, people who change things in the place of prayer. Even if you're weak, in no time your faith will catch up. You don't just stay isolated. Okay, we need to be deliberate about this. And then the next phase, you need to prepare for the next phase. And now this is for a woman who is sitting there and thinking, okay, my marriage has been good, so good so far. I don't have any problem. then the question is, there is a next phase. Are you prepared for it? Your next phase may be that, yes, the children will leave home and you become empty nesters again. Are you prepared for that phase? And for those whose children have left, there's a next phase coming, which is the phase of being a mother-in-law. And what sometimes we forget is that there are new skills required for it. There's a new way of thinking you need to have. There are strategies you need to have through prayer. Yes, because when we pray, we get strategies from God, you know. But you don't just stay. I was talking with a woman about 2 weeks ago, and she said she started this group for preparing mothers for their daughter-in-laws. And when she carried on talking, and she mentioned the book, The Mother-in-Law Dance, and I got curious, and I picked up the book. You know, I went to look for it online. You know, but this is the woman who has decided, I won't just walk into the next phase. I won't just let the next phase happen. I have to be prepared for it. I have to have a state of mind for it. Because what you find sometimes is that because mothers are not prepared for this phase, they begin to interfere in the marriages of their children, you know, and then cause a lot of friction. Your daughter, your son has a good marriage, but when you start sowing some kinds of seeds, then things go all messy, you know. But when you're prepared, you have the skills for it, you have your mindsets changed, ready for it, ready for this girl or young man who will be coming into your life, then we'll be talking about something good. Now, having talked about this, I want to get into something practical, more practical, because someone might be asking, now, the problem I have in my marriage, excuse me, is one to do with communication. Sometimes we try to communicate, it doesn't go right, and then conflict just erupts. Oh dear, pardon me. And conflict results. What do I do? So in a case like that, communication has become an issue. There are many areas I could talk about, but I want to focus on this so we can at least have something to go home with instead of going all over the place. Pardon me, 1 minute. Okay. So I've come up with this, the skunk and the turtle. Now, what's the skunk? The skunk is an animal that gives off unpleasant odor. And when it does that, the odor lingers for a long time, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks, you know. And of course, we all know the turtle. The turtle is slow, it takes its time. So creating a scenario, you have you're trying to have a communication with your husband, depending on your personality, and you say something. Now, the skunk would come out and say it the way she feels it. This is how it is. And spray the unpleasant odor. Take it, take it, take it. It's coming to your space. If you don't like it, just have it. This is me. Now, the turtle tends to avoid confrontation. And so what the turtle would typically do would be to retreat. No, 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 this is trouble. I'll retreat, I'll go back, and then I'll come out again to look to be sure the coast is clear before I fully come out again. But the skunk just attacks, just lets temper go. Oh, this is me. The turtle, on the other hand, retreats and then starts analyzing the situation. Oh, I don't like the way she talked to me, and she did this, and her body language was not right, you know, and starts analyzing it. Yes, the skunk has done it, giving up the word, and then leaves. But what often happens is the skunk leaves and starts regretting. Oh, I shouldn't have said it the way I said it, but it's out there already. And now the whatever had to be sprayed is sprayed. Now, I would want some interaction. I'd like to take a couple of reactions. Which do we think is better?
The turtle.
Does anyone want to say something?
I said the turtle.
The turtle, why?
Yeah, because you just from the analysis you gave, she retreats from probably the danger, look around, assess the situation, and tread cautiously. So I think if we apply it to our lives or to our marriages, if probably there's anything that's going to cause friction or strife, we try and step aside from that situation, analyze it, and see the way you will react. Don't react immediately when you are angry, because, like the Bible says, the anger of man does not bring out the righteousness. So you have to draw back from the situation, analyze it, and for me, I would just say, this battle, I'm not going to fight you now. I'm just jumping back first. I will analyze it and I will think about it before I know I'll come back to that issue again. So that's the way I handle my issues. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for that contribution. Any other one?
There is an answer in the chat box. Somebody has said none of them, but that's she's suggesting that both should draw strength from each other. None on its own. Both should draw strength from each other.
Super. I like that. Okay. Now if we look at this, now typically they would say you need to be like the wise dove. Okay. The wise dove would step back, assess the situation, process it, and then decide on what to do and how to go about it. Because the thing is, in a relationship, I know oftentimes skunks in marriage, skunks would often marry turtles. But the truth is that, like, I mean, from the remark in the chat box, from the chat room, spot on. Now they both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses. Because for the skunk, I think the skunk's weaknesses are more obvious. Yes, the skunk comes out. It's all about how you process anger. The skunk explodes. The turtle, on the other hand, implodes and starts, But the thing is, in the course of imploding, does it affect you? Does it eat away who you are? Which sometimes is the case. Turtles sometimes have the tendency to avoid confrontation because they don't want conflict. But conflict is not bad in itself. Conflict helps you in marriage to fine-tune your values. So just that the skunk would have to learn how to go about it, the skunk would have to learn listening, will have to pick up listening skills, okay, to be more patient, to hear the other out. And the turtle would need to learn to speak out some more, because if you don't speak, then people won't know what you're thinking. So looking at it practically in marriage, if you're someone who avoids confrontation, how would your husband know what's on your mind? You see, I was talking to a woman the other day and she said to me, she's talking about her husband, and she said, oh, her husband is my colleague. And she said to me, oh, you find it, and this, I mean, I'm talking about someone who's in her 60s. And she said to me, you find he's a very quiet man. He's a man of few words. And she said, I'm a talker. And so what I do is I tend to ask him questions, because I believe that when people talk, then we know what they're thinking, you see. So if the turtle doesn't speak, how would your husband know what you're thinking? It would be difficult. And the tendency is that when he's not met your expectations, this is where we have unmet expectations and unexpressed expectations. If he's not met your expectations, which you haven't expressed, then it's more problem, you see. So that's why we need to create the balance. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's a reason God has made us all different, but we need to tap into our differences, celebrate our differences, and make the marriage work. Okay, so I decided to keep it short and keep it at this point. This is who we are on all platforms, Foundation for Family Affairs. Thank you for having me. I'm open to questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. That was very insightful. I'm sure some of us can immediately identify where we fall from that example. Can we have questions, please? It's question time. You can unmute yourself to ask your question, or you could put your question in the chat box. You can drop your questions in the chat room, please. We are waiting for them. Mrs. Chidi, while waiting for more questions, I was just going through the chat room, and there's another opinion there about the skunk and the turtle. Someone has said that is really difficult. Okay, let me just read it the way. I think both is difficult because they both have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, strength and weaknesses. So they both have consequences. In your own opinion, which would you say is the best, or how is the best way to go about it, in your own opinion?
Okay. Like I was saying, it would be nice when I talk to people of our community, I like to use the dove. The Caucasians would say you need to be like the wise owl. Okay, that will step back, observe the situation, make a proper assessment of it before you come out to speak. So, like the woman in the chat box said, neither of them is good. So it's for us to be wise, and those are peaceful. They are at the end of the day, what you want in your marriage is peace. Okay, you don't just. What's the point that in trying to resolve the conflict, we'll have more problems? So it's for us to process the situation, make a proper analysis of it, and then be willing to speak and address the situation. But it must be addressed.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that answer. If I may ask, where do you put emotional intelligence in all of this? Because really, if we are going to be practical, these things happen in our homes, but they happen so fast that you don't even get to think of your actions, before you react. So, and then it just occurred to me, emotional intelligence. So, as the expert man, where would you place emotional intelligence in all of this?
Very, very key, very important. Sometimes when we talk, as individuals, as we go through life, there should be that place for emotional growth. And that's where, and it's a skill everyone can learn. What would often stop it is when we insist on being the way we are or the way we used to be. And then you expect that your spouse should make the adjustment. But it's a two-way thing. It's two of you. You make up what it becomes. So if you are applying emotional intelligence and you are a skunk, it means you would be trying to, and the one advantage we have as Christians, we mustn't forget, is that we can deal with these things in the place of prayer as well. In partnership with God. So this is you saying, I don't like the way I lash out. Lord, I need your help. I'm vulnerable with God like that. I want you to help me so I don't lash out, because I find that it makes a different person of my husband, the person I don't want to see. You see? And then if you're a skunk, you need to also get to that point where you realize that it's emotional growth for you to rise up to be able to speak about a situation and not just run away from it. I know at the start of our marriage, I used to be the turtle who avoided confrontation. It was just like that. I just didn't like confrontation. And sometimes I would not want to talk about an issue, but that's not very good. How will the other person know what you're thinking? So it's a process. It's a process of growth, and we must do the stretching that it requires.
All right, thank you very much, Ma. We have a question now that says, please, how do you handle a spouse with mental issues and they have kids? They were not aware before marriage. She refused to take her medication.
Okay. I kind of appreciate that we're having this because sometimes in our community, mental illness is something we don't like to talk about. And that's why we find a lot of people suffering mentally in silence. Uh, you need to get to the point where you encourage your spouse to go back to be reassessed. If he's not been having medications, he needs to be assessed again, and then he needs to be open. I mean, for the good of your marriage and for his own good, he needs to be open to go back to seek help, medical help on this. It's something that can be dealt with medically. And as long as he carries on taking his medication, things will improve. But it's not nice when we keep it quiet and or one person just decides, I won't have it, I won't take the medication. It helps. It helps. So she would need to encourage him. If it's a woman whose husband is facing that, she would need to encourage him to go seek medical help. And if he wouldn't, probably get somebody to let him know why it's important to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Ma. There's also another question here that says, in a situation where one is an introvert and the other is an extrovert, how do you deal with the challenges at home?
Okay, it's a case of our personalities. And first of all, you must be proud of who you are. It's who you are. The introvert must not feel intimidated by the extrovert, and the extrovert must not feel intimidated by the introvert. You know, when I was speaking, I said we need to
Are you okay?
We need to celebrate our differences. It's a beautiful mix if we look at it, if we lean on each other's strengths. It becomes a problem when we start focusing on our weaknesses, or you have one focusing on the other's weakness, and the other who has a weakness also insisting it has to be my way or the highway. So if in marriage, it should be a case of marriage is beautiful. Marriage changes you if you let it. It would make someone pleasant of you if you allow yourself. It's sad when your personality has to be swallowed up in the marriage because the other things you're too much of an extrovert or you're too much of an introvert. These things should be maximized for the good of the marriage. Extroverts are known to be daring. They go for it. Imagine if you had a task as a family and it doesn't matter the gender, one steps out to do that thing. As long as we achieve it, together everyone achieves more. We're a team. Okay? So if the introvert has good sides as well. So it's in knowing your place, knowing that there are strengths in both personalities, and maximizing the strengths therein.
All right, thank you very much. I hope that has answered our sister's question sufficiently. There's another question here that says, many a times the woman sweeps things under the carpet to make peace reign. Is this the right attitude?
You know, when I was talking towards the end, I said the conflict must be addressed. Okay. And in just saying that, I'll just throw in something really quick. Jimmy Evans will propose 3 ways of managing conflict. The proactive way, the reactive way, and the radioactive. Now, proactive is when, as a couple, you sit down and you preempt situations. Okay, it's not happened, but if it happens that I lose my job, what do we do? If it happens that you just preempt some situations, and that way you're able to talk it through. You know, okay, this is where we are. You're kind of on the same page regarding the issue. And yes, there are issues you would never be ready for, but as they come, you're able to make a judgment of, okay, this might be it. Reactive is when something happens and then we have to start seeking solution. Okay, which is not so good. But then we also have the radioactive, which are those issues that, like the example, you don't talk about it. But every time something happens and it just scratches that issue, everywhere explodes. It's like the whole house is on fire. Okay. If those issues are not trashed out, if they are swept under the carpet, they will keep coming up as radioactive issues, and the house will be boiling. So issues are better addressed when you address them. But what's important is how you address them. Okay, because there are issues that, okay, this is not a good time. Okay, I'll wait for a good time. Because if you keep pushing it, it will spoil the whole atmosphere in the home, it spoils things. There are always better times. When your spouse is less stressed and more open to have an issue addressed. Okay, and that's where emotional maturity, which I talked about earlier, comes to play as well. So in marriage, it requires a lot of emotional maturity, that you assess these situations and make judgment as to, okay, I can leave this for later. But issues must be addressed. Otherwise, they'll get the house burning.
Sorry, ma.
Okay.
Sorry. Please, I have a question. But personally, ma, even before I got married, when I'm angry about something, I don't talk about it. I know this thing this person did got me angry. I will not talk about it, and I will just forget about it. And I will not even visit it again. And even when I got married, that was my attitude. And my husband don't like it. When things happen and you are angry about it, talk about it. But me, I will not say anything. And he will say, I know you are angry. I know what I did. You don't like it. But you will not talk. What is it? We have fought over and over and over. I said, I'm not angry. He said, you are angry. You are just pretending. I said, I'm not angry. I'm not. He said, I know you are angry. Talk. Say your mind. I said, there's nothing in my mind. And that is me, even before I got married. Even when that thing got me angry, I'll just do as if I'm not bothered about it. And I will forget about it. And I don't know what to do about it. This is the person that wants me to talk. But I feel it's not necessary. Why would I talk and we'll start fighting? So don't let me
Okay.
just talk about it. Let's forget about it. And this is, it kept on repeating itself. Say what is in your mind. There's nothing in my mind. But you are angry. Something is, there's nothing. There's something. I said there is nothing. Because I would not want to say what will make us have a confrontation, and I will start having one attitude and thinking that we are having issues. So most of the time I just keep quiet as if it doesn't happen. And I'll just move on. But he wants me to talk. But I'm not the talk type. So what do I do in
Okay.
that situation?
Okay. I understand where you're coming from, but let's flip it. If it was the other way around, and your husband was angry, and he tells you he's forgiven you might have forgiven and forgotten it, right? Forgiven, and but you don't know where you are with him. It would be a difficult one for you. Like I said earlier, what I learned from my colleague's wife, when people talk, you know what they're thinking. It's just nice that, and it's part of emotional growth. It's just nice. You're a turtle. You don't like confrontation, right? But it's just nice that when someone wrongs you, it's about how you say it. You find the best way to express it. Give that person the opportunity. Otherwise, if he would also be careful about telling you when you wrong him, and it's not him. So in a case like that, but there are some issues. I'm saying that with caution, because there are some issues you might think you've forgotten or you've forgiven, and one is something could be a trigger, and you would explode. Yes, and that said in itself, if what he did you've not talked about, what he did that wronged you has not been talked about, how would he know not to do it again? You see, so he would keep wronging you, and you keep holding back. Marriage should be enjoyed. If you're having to hold back all of those emotions and process it and say, oh, okay, let it go, it's not good for you either. You should be enjoying your marriage. You should be enjoying the relationships around you. As we grow older, we should get to that point where we give ourselves the permission to enjoy life. Enjoying life means that if I'm going to have, even if it's 1, 2, 3 relationships around me, they must be quality. They must be beneficial. And in being beneficial is that if I don't feel, it's about how you say it. You don't have to go confrontational with people. I mean, there's a thin line between being assertive and being aggressive, you see. So, but it's just nice that these things are expressed. Time and when and how is important, but you should, for his own good as well.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you very much. That's a very rich answer. And I know and believe that many of us have also benefited from that answer. We have another question here that says, in a marriage where the husband told the wife that she must pay the mortgage, where he knows that the lady is not working, how will you deal with this situation?
Okay, so this is now, you see what I mean about being proactive with these issues, talking about them before they become problems. But if she's not paying, how is she, if she doesn't have the money, is she working?
This question says he knows the lady is not working.
Okay.
She's not working.
So if she's not working, where would the money come from? You see, and this is where we encourage people to see marriage as teamwork. It's about two people coming together to pool their resources together to better their lives. I'm not even going to go too far into it being a covenant, because some people would say, oh, okay, you're taking it too far now. But beyond being a contract, marriage is a covenant. We're in it for life. We're in it together. It is expected that we take on each other's burdens, you see. So, but if we understand that it's for the benefit of the persons involved in it, then it's about I add, you add, as long as it improves our lives, it makes our lives better. So if she's in a place where she doesn't have, then I mean, why that pressure? But having said that, I would be asking, why does she not? Why is she not working? Is it that there are options for her to do certain jobs and she's not picking those offers because she's waiting for a big break? Or is it that she's just not decided to work? You see, so in an issue like this, until we have all the information, it will be tricky to give a robust answer.
Exactly. Please, whoever sent that question, okay, please, you could send us more details so that we can have a robust answer, or you try to make contact afterwards. Like you said, Ma, personally, it may be from a situation where the husband is taking on so much responsibility and is getting to say, no, you have to do this while I'm already doing this, and this already. The best you can do is to take this up, that kind of a situation. Yeah, I think so too. But we don't have the full details, like you said. Please, any other question before we round this section up? Thank you so very much, Mrs. Akunna. We have learned a lot from this session. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you
God bless
very
you.
much.